I feel stuck because of what happened to me. An adoptee shared this with me in 2023, and since then, I've interviewed over 100 adoptees and fosters. I heard this quite a bit, and this made me curious, so I Googled statistics on foster alumni and statistics on adoptees. I invite you to do that on your phone right now as I show you what I saw. Many foster youth will end up experiencing homelessness. Almost 30% will get in trouble with law enforcement. Less than 3% will graduate college. Adoptees have a high risk for mental health disorders, they have challenges with relationships, and they're more prone to substance abuse. This is the AI summary that pops up when you Google us. I'm an adoptee. I'm also a foster, which means I was in foster care. Before I share my story, I just want to mention that all of our experiences are different and they're unique. I stand in a place of privilege right now, sharing my experience and my perspective, but others don't always get this opportunity. And it's important to know that all of our stories deserve to be heard and seen. So I don't know my true origin story, but what I do know is I was either relinquished by or stolen from my birth family in South Korea. I was placed into orphanages, and after a couple of years was brought to the States to a US family to be adopted. After a couple of years with them, they decided they didn't want me anymore. So they relinquished me into the foster care system, where I went into a foster home and eventually was adopted around the age of 8. This was not a happy tale fairy ending. I eventually experienced a broken adoption with them as well, and by the age of 17, was navigating the world alone. I had no anchors, I had no family, I had no support, and no sense of belonging. And journeying through this experience by myself, being relinquished and reliving trauma, being a young adult was hard. I had challenges. And things like not knowing where I would get my next meal, or if I could make it to work in my broken down car, or if I could make rent. These were the challenges I did face. But regardless, living through broken adoptions and navigating foster care, these challenges did not define me. So, I just want to point out, I'm supposed to be one of those statistics. I'm supposed to have struggled in that way and be that now, but I'm not. I'm not depressed. I don't have substance abuse issues. I did graduate college. In fact, I have an MBA from NYU. I have a wonderful husband and partner, 2 beautiful kids. I built a great career, and I'm now a founder and entrepreneur. And I'm a happy person, very happy. And when you look at those statistics for fosters and adoptees, gosh, those are depressing, right? And think about what a foster or what an adoptee sees and feels when they see these. So I kept asking this question as I became more curious. Where was my representation? Where were adoptees and fosters who had outcomes like me? We're not seeing this full picture. The representation is not accurate. So where are these stories? I Googled again. And what I saw pop up were famous adoptees and fosters and celebrities like Bill Clinton, Steve Jobs, we all know Simone Biles, but they're all well-known celebrities. What about the everyday adoptee and foster? What about the people that build great careers, that are leaders among us, that are successful, but they're not celebrities? but don't their stories deserve to be told? I couldn't find much, and the more I looked, the more I wanted to see this representation. And so I began to put the pieces together, right? If this representation didn't exist, if I wanted to see it, and there were others that probably did as well, well, then the conclusion was we had to put this representation out there. We needed the algorithms and AI to know that these are the stories that you can also show people. And so at the same time, right, we would be shifting the narratives of what fosters and adoptees, who we are and what we accomplish. So in 2023, I launched a national study, and specifically it focused on people like me, adoptees who were transracially adopted, and fosters who were people of color. And I was very curious about their experience in the workplace, their representation in the workplace, and their careers. And I was curious if they had experienced the same challenges as I did, but also had positive outcomes like I did. Here's what I learned. 46% of adoptees and foster respondents, they said they felt invisible in their workplaces. Only 24% felt belonging. Only 10% felt that they had resources, like mentors who understood them. And a whopping 92% said that they wanted a platform that addressed professional adoptees and fosters where they could see this kind of representation too. What this study tells us, what it taught me, was that I was not alone. I started to feed my curiosity even more, and what I was learning was informing my actions. So I ended up building that professional platform for adoptees and fosters. I then launched a podcast. Now I'm writing a book, and I'm creating a leadership conference that shows the representation that I want to see in the world. And the theme, the I feel stuck because of what happened to me. I think that no matter who you are and what background you have, you can relate to this at some point in your life. I did not ask to be separated from my birth family. I did not ask to be put into strange homes, strange cities, lose my culture, my heritage, my name. I had no voice, no agency, as strangers decided what would happen to me and what my future would be. And this can make us feel stuck. It's hard to move forward when you feel like that, when you don't know the life, the career, the future that you can build. And adoptees and fosters, we're made to feel grateful that we're so lucky to be adopted and fostered, and we shouldn't want more. And this message is internalized. It's reinforced over and over again by society. And for me, that caused limiting beliefs. It limited what I thought I could build for myself. We let our past lack of agency continue to dictate our future. And that's where we get stuck. Those who get stuck in their limiting beliefs, they ask me, Grace, how did you move forward? How did you get past what happened to you? I don't think I can do it. And I get it. I had those same doubts. I had those same questions. But I refused to stay stuck. So I used my past to fuel my drive and build my momentum. But I did not let my past dictate what actions I took. I could decide who I wanted to be. I could decide what I would achieve. I could decide if I was going to be successful or not. And through my life experience, my research, the being curious enough to ask the questions and find the answers, and through my determination to build the future that I wanted, a movement was born. I created this movement through my will, but also by following these 3 intentional actions. First, I told myself I had value because I was a human being. Period. I had to tell myself this over and over again until I started to really believe it. This wasn't easy for me, especially as a foster and as an adoptee, who was constantly told that my value was tied to the family story, to the adoption story, to the foster story. And that's where my self-worth was. And for fosters who age out of the system and never get placed into these families or homes, it can make them feel like they have zero value. And because I had to believe it internally, I would say it to myself in the mirror. I would write it down as affirmations. I would consume content or have conversations with people that I trusted that would help reinforce this positive message. Repetition, repetition, repetition. Until I could see it and believe it, I had to repeat it. Second, I had to let go of the things that were not serving me anymore. Whew, this one's tough. So this might be our guilt, this might be our shame, our sense of responsibility, or others' expectations that they put on us. And for me, as an adoptee and foster, I had identities pushed upon me by society or the systems that weren't really mine. And I had to let go of those. There's also the narratives, right, that we're not wanted, we're not loved, we're not worth it. And I really had to let that narrative go. They were not serving me anymore. So we need to be honest about what's holding us back, what's not serving us, and then let it go. Third, I had to fight for myself. I had to learn and believe that I hold the power to make things happen. I don't have to sit and wait for something or someone to decide what happens to me. I could be proactive, I could take action and be bold and go after it. This is hard too, because of what happened to me without my permission or my input. I used to feel helpless, that I needed to rely on someone to step in and intervene and make something happen for me. Or I used to believe, right, that good things were not meant for me unless someone else decided that it was. But when we intentionally create or build or make forward progress on something, that will organically open doors, that will organically create opportunities. Sometimes you have to force yourself through those doors. Like some doors don't open without a little push. But you can create the life that you want. You have the power within yourself to make it happen. Doesn't have to be a grand gesture. Doesn't have to be big. One of the things that I did that was simple was just to speak up for myself when I was being bullied in the workplace. That small thing led to another action, then another, and eventually opened the door for me to be founder and CEO. Small steps are great steps. You just have to start. That is the hardest part. And when you empower yourself, you will empower others. Trust me, I know, I've seen it firsthand. Never did I imagine that the thing that I created for fosters, adoptees, and our allies would become this national movement and empower so many. Even as little as 3 years ago, I never thought I'd build anything. And I simply started to just fight for myself and take a stand for myself. And that momentum built from there. Yes, your past matters. Yes, it does impact your life. But what happened to you does not determine who you'll become or what you can achieve. Adoptees and fosters, listen to me. I especially want you to hear this. If you take these 3 intentional actions, value yourself, let go, and fight, you can dictate your future. These are simple, and yet I realize it can be difficult. But I promise it's worth the effort. Be curious enough to ask the questions. Be empowered to take that first step. Take ownership of what is yours. You dictate your future. And perhaps you will create a movement too. Thank you.